technology failed me, and my manuscript wasn't brought up on my iPad this week. I made doubly sure it was. So, anyway, humanity began its existence as nomads. Isn't that a great opening line? That's something no one really wants to put you to sleep. Really? You know, something. History began with nomads. We were nomads. Yeah, I'm sorry, but stick with me because it gets a little more interesting, or it's something we need to pay attention to for later. Either way, just still keep listening. Humanity began its existence as nomads. They were travelers who lived off the land and made their bed where the earth was the friendliest that they could find it. They would begin their day at sunrise and ended at sunset. Their meals would consist of the fruit they harvested when it was time to harvest the fruit. Yet they hunted the animals responsibly. The animals that they hunted them responsibly, using their bones for tools and their skins for clothes. Now, of course, there were problems with their nomadic existence. Sometimes the trees that they counted on for sustenance refused to bear fruit. Sometimes the animals that they didn't hunt actually began to hunt them. And sometimes other groups of nomads would desire the same food or desire the same shelter that they did, and there would be struggles to seize control of what you needed or protect what you had already acquired. Well, we made sure to fix that problem. I don't know exactly how long that process took, but we began to fix the problem. We soon found out that we didn't need to go out to where the food was, only make the food where we already were. We invented agriculture to ensure a non-existent food supply. We began to till the ground with our bare and calloused hands in order that our loved ones and us could do our best to avoid things like hunger and starvation. We grew what we needed in the moment and developed ways to store what we might need in the future. It was a major step in human history. However, there were still problems. Our storehouses would soon become the target of those who wanted or needed what we had. And at that point, we discovered that the communities we built up around our year-round food supply were going to need protection. So we worked on weapons to fight off our enemies. We worked on walls to fortify our locations. And we developed ways to identify our enemies and how to make distinctions between them and what it might take to defeat them. And we've gotten considerably better at that as time has gone by. Though no system was ever really perfect, we'd gotten ourselves to the place where we were developing ways to survive and keeping our successful secrets safe from everyone else. Now, from our nomadic beginnings, we've been a species with a propensity towards setting ourselves apart from others. When we get to the point where we have quarantined ourselves from the people who are different from us by building walls and drawing borders on maps, we begin to make distinctions amongst ourselves, don't we? The person who has been chosen by our deity is the one who should lead us. The person who was the most effective while fighting off our enemies, we should make them our leader. This person has experienced the most economic prosperity, so we'll give them the economic advantages that nobody else gets in hopes that they will share, in one way or another, that prosperity with those below them on the socioeconomic ladder. It's how we've organized our world. We've set ourselves apart. We've drawn these borders. Everyone and everything packed nicely and neatly into the little boxes that we create in order that we can better understand our surroundings and feel safer in the process. It's like a child psychologist explaining to a hands-off parent that their child feels safer and more secure when they have clear rules set in front of them. We like to have clear rules and boundaries set before us. That's just who we are. Now, of course, the rules we've set up could always be wrong. Maybe. I mean, that debate is constantly going on throughout the course of human history. We don't like to admit that our rules and regulations could be wrong. We may even hate to admit it. We might even deny it. The truth is that our rules are often, and yes, I mean often, our rules are wrong. And Paul understands this, which brings us to our scripture this morning. He's communicating that fact in his letter to the church at Galatia. Now, to be clear, the argument that Paul is making here that he's making to the church is one that is very personal to him. And that's what makes it so powerful. But to understand it, you have to understand a bit of Paul's history and why it's personal to him. Now, for that, you need to go back to the book of Acts. If you're not, and by counting how many people show up on Wednesday night and how many people show up this morning, I can say clearly that most of you don't, but our Wednesday night Bible study should be something that you think about attending because we're reading the book of Acts. And even if you don't come to the Bible study, it's a good idea for any Christian at least once, maybe twice, probably even 3 times a year to maybe read through the book of Acts, because I think it's that important to understand the early church. But in it you will find the reason that Paul is so adamantly opposed to faith that is wrapped up in jumping through hurdles or following a specific set of rules that we have created, that create the boundaries over which people need to cross. See, Paul is so vehemently against these things because it was him who was so vehemently for these things and that kind of life and that kind of faith. You see, for the first time we see Paul, or as